For a guy that wants to be Pikachu so bad, it turns out Mimikyu is a whole lot better. So Mimikyu is the definition of a one-trick pony, and its trick is actually pretty good. While it's got a sweet typing in Ghost Fairy, along with workable attack and speed, the true sauce is with its disguise ability. Before it can take any damage, the opponent must hit it once to break its disguise. It does take a little bit of chip when its disguise is broken, which is actually a result of Game Freak nerfing this thing. It used to take no damage from this. Regardless, this is essentially a free turn that allows this bad boy to set up a nice little swords dance. And this also makes it a perfect user for Red Card, which forces whatever touches it to switch randomly, making it one of the best almost guaranteed ways to stop opposing setup. It can naturally outspeed a lot and hit hard with stab options in Play Rough along with Shadow Claw, and then it can pull out some big priority Shadow Sneaks. Mimikyu is a double whammy of a mon that's both cool as hell and super fun to use competitively. Look, sometimes you just gotta toss the Mimikyu on the squad. This thing is so fun to use because it really affects the speed of play. Just from team preview, they have to kind of be cautious, and it's an interesting sort of like an insurance policy of a guy that can set up and sweep you at any time. So today we're showing some love to the fake Pikachu, and if you're into that kind of thing, consider hitting that subscribe button. I'm on my way to 400k, and you can be part of the journey. With that, let's go ahead and jump into the match. First of all, this is an insanely good match, and it comes right down to it. So as my opponent leads off with the Galvantula, I'm kind of shit out of luck against this thing. I do not have a way to get rid of Sticky Web, and that means my entire game plan is going to be having to work around that. So one thing I do have is a horse. So, you know, I'm just going to have my little leg warmers on and set up my Stealth Rock, as they are free to set up that Sticky Web. Now, without any removal, I'm just going to deal with it. So I hit him with a nice little Neigh, throw some rocks around. And I'm kind of in trouble because I don't want to unnecessarily take too much damage on this thing, and I know that, you know, most Galvantula are going to be carrying coverage and Energy Ball. So my best bet in being able to take an Energy Ball and then potentially something like a Thunderbolt after would be Skuntank, which, you know, is not something you usually say to the smelly fella, but I bring in the hairdo and I'm fully expecting an Energy Ball, and then I can, you know, maybe do some stuff. So we get caught up in a Sticky Web, and now the webs smell like shit. So they do go for the Energy Ball, which is great, and that's not going to do too much. We get the nice little resist there, and I'm feeling like I am in range to take another attack here. Of course, Galvantula is free to go for whatever they want. They're going to hit me with a Thunder, and I'm going to go ahead and bank on the fact that I do have the ability to live, but I do actually get paralyzed, which is an absolute bust to the balls. However, I break through and connect on the Gunk Shot, which is absolutely amazing. And while it's not quite enough to be able to kill, I can now at least try for a Sucker Punch, and guess what? I break through the para again. Sucker Punch comes through. That's going to take care of the spider, which is amazing for me. And now that's a dead Galvantula. You know, I wasn't going to be coming back in on Stealth Rock anyway. So I get lucky on the Sucker Punch, able to take care of it. And now they get a revenge switch in. So they do also have a Mudsdale of their own. Not something you see often, but we're both working with the Dales. And they're just going to go ahead and set up their own Stealth Rock. So at this point, I decided, you know, Skuntank doesn't have a whole lot of utility. I decided to stay in and try to get up a layer of Toxic Spikes. Doesn't end up working because I do get fully paralyzed, which I was probably due for anyway, but a layer of Toxic Spikes would be nice, just being able to poison stuff and kind of punish switches. But at this point, I don't really have any business switching out. I'm going to try it again, and they just go right for that. Body Press does finish off the Skuntank, but not before I get a little bit of Aftermath. Buddy just absolutely, nothing like smashing a skunk, and now the smell is so bad that it hurts you. And also the Rocky Helmet too, so this thing actually takes, you know, considerable chip for, you know, touching me and killing me, so that's actually really nice damage on the Mudsdale. And also, this gives me now a spot to where I can try to get something going on the squad. So I've got a couple options, you know, for setup and different kind of win conditions on the squad. And first, I want to bring in the Alolan Ninetales. So, of course, I am caught in Sticky Web. I should still be faster than a Mudsdale regardless. But also, I'm here to set up some Aurora Veil. I've got the Light Clay. It's going to stick around. And thanks to that Snow Warning, we're going to be pretty bulky on the physical side. So I do just go right for that Aurora Veil. It's going to allow things to be able to take hits so much easier. And I'm trying to look at what potentially has the option to set up. Something like Ice Cube. Mimikyu is always an option in the back. But they decide to swap immediately into the friggin' Galarian Slowking. And Buddy, his head is being eaten by a shell. Gotta be painful, but I get up that Aurora Veil, which is nice. And now, sadly, I'm in a bit of a spot where I can't really stay in here against a Sludge Bomb. But I also feel like they're maybe going to over-predict here. I'm going to end up going for the risky maneuver here, and I'm going to click Blizzard. I'm going to bank on the fact that they might opt to go for something like a double switch or like a chilly reception. And as I go for that Blizzard, it connects, does a little bit of chip, and they actually go for the Yawn. So I get a little bit drowsy, which is actually fine. I didn't have to take a Sludge Bomb, which is great, and now I have the option to switch out. But it puts us in a position here where, like, they can easily just click Yawn again. If that's what they want to do, so be it. But I decide I'm going to bring in the Ice Cube. I mean, friggin' the Penguin needs the Snow up. I need the Aurora Veil, and I have the ability to potentially Belly Drum here. So Pablo gets caught up in a Sticky Web, which you hate to see. I do have to deal with those Sticky Webs and also the Stealth Rock. So take a little bit of chip. And on the swap turn, they actually decide to go for the Chilly Reception. So Buddy tells a shitty joke. It actually fails in setting up the Snow because it's already up, but it does at least still work on the switch. So it's essentially, it functions as a nice little teleport, gives them a little bit of a switch initiative on being able to bring in whatever they want against the Ice Cube. And as they go Hitmonchan, I'm kind of back against the wall here, right? Like, I'm in a spot where I have the Veil up. I know that I at least can take one attack from this thing, and I realize, you know, I don't have much reason to swap here. I'm going to go all in on the Ice Cube and see what I can do. I decide to go for the Belly Drum here, knowing they're going to have to hit me at least with one physical attack to get rid of my Ice Face, and as they go for that Rapid Spin, it does get rid of the rocks, but more importantly, busts up my damn face. It always feels weird seeing Ice Cube without his Ice Face. It feels wrong, like he's naked or something, but I am able to get off the Belly Drum, maximizing the attack. And at this point, with our face gone, we're actually base 130 speed. So while I should be faster, I am in danger to one thing, and that's priority Mach Punch. I know that this Hitmonchan's got it, and one way I do have of mitigating that is actually going for the Terra Ghost. Now, if they do Mach Punch, it's going to go right through me, and I know that I actually have just enough HP to be able to set up a substitute, and in that process, also being able to get my Salic Berry. So they do go for the Mach Punch, plays right into it perfectly. I am now a dead-ass Penguin, goes right through me. Now I can set up the substitute, and then boom, brings us down to 2 HP, activates the Salic Berry, and now I at least get that speed back that we lost from the Sticky Web. So along with being base 130 speed and at neutral, we should still be faster than pretty much everything they've got, barring potential speed setups on their end. So now I can just go for the Ice Spinner, knowing that they cannot Mach Punch. I'm free at my +6 Penguin ass to just bop him one. And that's going to take care of the Hitmonchan. So that's a pretty big threat out of the way. And I'm behind the substitute. I'm feeling like potentially Ice Cube is in a spot to maybe clean up the game, and it would be extremely satisfying if so. However, with the Stealth Rock gone, they can bring in the Poltegeist. And this is a fella that's always rocking with a Focus Sash. So I know that I at least need to break this thing Sash. While I am faster, I can go for that Ice Spinner. I do have to touch it. Brings it down to that Focus Sash, which is wildly unfortunate because as it's able to take that physical attack, that's then going to activate Weak Armor. And while it does suffer a defensive drop, it actually gets a +2 to speed. And that's going to make this thing faster than Ice Cube at neutral at base 130. So they can finish off the substitute with a Shadow Ball. And now the Sticky Web is horrible because since I got that -1 and now just being at neutral, this thing is going to be able to outspeed me with that doubled speed. Finishes me off with a Shadow Ball. And while the Ice Cube thought it was going to be able to maybe sweep the game cleanly, we lose the Penguin. So well played on the little Rapid Spin play along with the freaking Poltegeist. So at this point, here's the thing. Aurora Veil wears off, not that big of a deal. But looking at this, Mimikyu is kind of my best way and kind of only way to stop this actually. I need the priority with the Shadow Sneak, but first I realized, you know what? This thing doesn't have any setup. And if I want Mimikyu to potentially be my win condition in the back, which Mimikyu mostly does function as a really good late game sweeper. So I want to try to take advantage of that. So first of all, I go into the Ninetales. I'm thinking even with Stealth Rock Chip, I should be able to take one attack from this thing. And if I can get my Aurora Veil up, it's going to be super valuable. So they actually end up going for the Shell Smash. They're going to opt for the little late setup here. So the Shell Smash going to drop the defense even further, but then just goes ahead and boosts up speed and special attack. So we're looking at a very scary pot of tea over here. Now, I'm, again, not necessarily super worried about this thing because at 1 HP, it's just vulnerable to a Shadow Sneak from Mimikyu. And now I'm playing into Mimikyu being the win con entirely. That does allow me to get up that Aurora Veil, which is sick. And now for 8 turns, I'm going to have to take as much advantage of that as I really can. So I now know that the Poltegeist probably finishes off the Ninetales here, which I'm not necessarily that mad at. I figure I did my job. I was able to come in, get that off one more time. They finished me with a stored power. Does end up getting a crit. Do not believe it mattered. But down goes the majestic ass Ninetales. So I'm now down to 3 Mons left. Not a whole lot of scary ones, but I do have arguably the scariest in the Mimikyu. Now it's time to see if we can get this thing fully going. So as I get caught up in the Sticky Web, it is unfortunate. However, it doesn't matter for our priority at least. So while I do ordinarily want to just try to opt for a free Swords Dance while I have my Disguise up, I figure I should probably try to keep that disguise up and not let this thing touch me. If it touches me, it's going to activate that red card, and that's not what we want. So as I go for the Shadow Sneak, they're going to predict that. They know that that is coming, and they also know that thing can come back in for free, not having to worry about Stealth Rock up. So as I Shadow Sneak, the freaking horse is here, and I get a crit for some huge damage. Doesn't do much to the guy, which sucks. But honestly, Mudsdale swap in here isn't really that bad for me, because I know that they're going to have to touch the Mimikyu eventually, and that's just going to activate the red card, and now I'm kind of in a spot to freely set up a Swords Dance, and I really need to play my cards correctly here for Mimikyu to get as much value out of the fake Pika as I can. So I go for that Swords Dance to do actually outspeed even with the Sticky Web, which is great. And as they go for the Iron Defense, I figure that is even better news. Set up in front of Mimikyu while they don't know I have a red card is honestly amazing. This is probably one of the best red card users because it guarantees, unless you're up against like a Mold Breaker Mon, that it is going to activate. So I'm going to go for the second Swords Dance. I feel like, you know what, I can get a little bit greedy here. Brings me up to +4, and now they do touch me with the Earthquake. So they probably feel like they have the, you know, the upper hand on the matchup because they have that Iron Defense. But as that snaps my neck, I take a little bit of chip, and then I'm like, actually, that's a foul, buddy. You swap your ass on out of here. Red card activates, and now they have to bring in essentially just something completely random, which ends up being the Ogerpon Cornerstone. Now, this is a very scary mon in general, and not the guy you really want to see. However, I should be able to take one attack here. I know that I'm behind an Aurora Veil, and my best bet is to go for 2 Shadow Sneaks. While it doesn't quite kill with 1, I can take an Ivy Cudgel because of that Aurora Veil, which is great. And now the second Shadow Sneak should be able to finish it off. Now, they realize that, and they're actually going to end up swapping Buddy out. And they're trying to find any way through this Mimikyu that they can. So they're going to end up opting to just sack the Poltergeist. They figure this thing's not going to be able to set up any further at 1 HP. It's kind of just a liability. And our Shadow Sneak is broken kettle ass. So that takes care of that. And now, as they bring back in the Mudsdale, look, this is a pretty damn defensive fella, but we've got some decent chip on the thing thanks to, you know, Skuntank's Aftermath. And I'm feeling like if I can connect on a Play Rough, we actually should be able to get a kill here. Now, I do connect, luckily, and that is going to be able to just barely take care of Mudsdale. So Mimikyu going on exactly the tear that we needed. As the Aurora Veil goes away, we're now in a spot where they're down to just a couple mons left. Honestly, with the 2 we're looking at left, Mimikyu's in a fantastic spot to clean up the game because as they have the Galarian Slowking, I can just Shadow Claw this thing into oblivion, and then we obviously Shadow Sneak the Ogerpon. But they actually do still have their Terra in the back pocket, and it ends up being the worst possible Terra for us at this moment. They end up going for the Terra Normal, which is now going to render our Shadow Claw useless. Goes right through them. And that is extremely unfortunate. I was like, no way it's Terra Normal. It is, and the most perfectly timed Terra ever allows it to then fire off a Sludge Wave, and that takes care of the Mimikyu. So not as easy as we once thought, but now we're in a little 2v2 situation. They've got the Ogerpon, they have the full health Galarian Slowking, and I've got a couple of weird dudes. So first of all, I decided to go into the Mudsdale, just because I have the super effective hit with a Body Press, and I'm thinking it's an easy 2-hit KO, where also I should be able to take 2 hits from this thing, even though on the special side, but also we run the risk of, you know, being hit with a Yawn, and it's getting complicated out here, but I gotta do anything we can. So I am just gonna click the Body Press, as they are gonna go for the Yawn. I don't have any stamina boost to increase my defense for Body Press to do any more damage, but as I go for that Yawn, I get a little bit of chip there, you know, with that Body Press, which is always nice. And now I have a decision to make. While I could either stay in here and go for another Body Press, I could also potentially swap into Berserker and not have to worry about that Yawn putting us to sleep. Now, Mudsdale is great utility. I at least know that on the physical side, I should be able to take 1 attack from that Ogerpon. So I'm kind of playing toward that being basically the win condition. If I can get enough damage with this Berserker as I swap in, Mudsdale should be able to maybe bring it home for us. So I bring in the Golden Viking, and I get caught up in Sticky Web, which actually ends up helping this mod. I'm mostly focused on being as slow as possible. And as they go for the Future Sight, that's actually great. Not immediate damage. And now I'm in a spot where I can go for a Gyro Ball. And while this thing's really slow we're up against, I'm actually going to be way slower because I'm holding Iron Ball. I'm caught up in Sticky Web, and Gyro Ball is just based off of how much speed we don't have. So they end up going for the Yawn now as they outspeed. I go for that Gyro Ball, and it actually almost ends up taking care of it. A kill there would have been extremely satisfying, but now we're in a spot where put to sleep next turn, I don't really want to swap into the Mudsdale having to worry about taking that Future Sight attack, And they actually just click the Future Sight again, because they probably don't have anything that can even touch me. So I do finish it with another Gyro Ball, and that's going to be a dead Slowking, which is great, because that thing really threw a wrench in my damn plans. So with that out of the way, now we are sadly going to fall asleep with a Berserker, and their final Mon being Ogerpon Cornerstone is a little bit scary. So first we take the Future Sight attack, doesn't really hurt that bad at least, and we take a little, nothing like a little nap time right in the most pivotal moment in the damn game. Thanks for that, freaking Berserker. So in comes Ogerpon. Now, one thing I'm extremely worried about in this situation is if it's Swords Dance. If it can set up a Swords Dance, it should be in a spot where a Horn Leech is not good versus Berserker. But also, this thing can't really do too much to Berserker in general. We're defensive, we're Steel type. As they go for that Horn Leech, it actually is not gonna do too much. So we stay asleep, of course, for the guaranteed turn at this point. And now I'm like, honestly, if I could just wake up here, that's going to essentially be the game with the Berserker. But they now decide to bust out the Superpower. That is going to allow it to finish off the Berserker. Luckily for us, does at least drop its physical attack and defense one stage. And now we've got ourselves a good old-fashioned Mexican standoff 1v1 here. I've got a full health Mudsdale versus, you know, the Ogerpon that has the stab coverage in that Horn Leech against me. So we get caught in the sticky web. We're at full health. I'm fully defensive invested on this fella, at least HP wise. And I feel like if I can get a body press off, that's going to be the game. We should be able to do it. They go for the final Horn Leech, and we are able to live thanks to at least that -1 from the Superpower. While it does get a whole bunch of health back, now I just have to be able to kill it with this body press. And as the game timer is ticking down below 30 seconds, the body press is going to be able to finish it off, and that's going to be a dead Ogerpon and the end of the match. So that was an insane game that came right down to it, and honestly, very well played by my opponent. That was very fun and very nerve-wracking. So that shit was crazy. And if you thought we were done, you are in fact mistaken. This is going to bring us into game number 2, because we got some more fun to have. Now, if you've stuck around this far into the video, you should probably hit that like button if you haven't already. It helps out with the algorithm and all the nonsense. And let's get into the game. So this time, while I've got a little bit of a switch up of my own squad, my opponent actually has a really interesting one as well. And as I'm going to lead off with the freaking Walnut, my ass is allergic to fire. Now they're going to lead Gardevoir, which leads me to believe that they're probably going to hit me with a Mystical Fire turn 1. And I'm like, if so be it. I'm going to click that Stealth Rock regardless. Turns out they go for the trick. And that is not generally ideal for Walnut to have any other item. And as I get a Choice Scarf, that's a bad time. I don't know how a Scarf would even work on this thing, but I got a massive neck size. But, you know, I'm Choice Scarf now. I'm stuck into this Stealth Rock. And that's not great. And, you know, I'm going to have to deal with that. At least I do get up my rocks. And also I don't die, or at least get knocked down to Sturdy from a Mystical Fire. So that feels pretty nice. And as I end up swapping into Berserker, I don't have much that wants to deal with fire coverage, but I'm like, you know, Berserker probably not super useful. And as I bring that thing in, they are going to swap into Sableye themselves. We get a little old-fashioned double switch action, and Sableye is also not really ideal for my freaking Viking kitty to come in here on. I do not want to be Will-O-Wisped, and as I actually end up swapping into Mienshao on this, I figured the Wisp is probably coming, either that or something like a Reflect. Regardless, Mienshao actually has a good matchup on that. If I get burnt, that's fine, because I'm a special attacking one, just to mess around, because why the hell not? Now, they do go for the Reflect, and also I feel like now they probably Will-O-Wisp. That allows me a free turn to Calm Mind. That's exactly what happens. Freaking Mienshao is a great target. Just looks, you know, satisfying to burn, but this one is probably the only one ever that doesn't care about that, because I do get burnt. I now go for that Calm Mind. I also realized I had a potential play there to go for Terra Dark. What that would do is be able to stop the Will-O-Wisp in general and kind of get a free turn out of it. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to burn the Terra this early, just because, you know, you never know. But I don't have much that wants to touch this Sableye, and I'm kind of hoping that they end up swapping this thing out against me. So they now go for the Light Screen. They realize, oh shit, buddy's setting up special attacks. Should probably go for that Light Screen. So it does at least allow me another turn of Calm Mind, which is great. I've now got +2 special attack and special defense, both of them doubled. And we're kind of a little bit of a threat. We obviously have to deal with that Light Screen, but it's about as good as a time as Mienshao can have here. So again, I'm going to go for another Calm Mind. I also know that this Sableye can't really hurt me, so it feels kind of free to set up another Calm Mind here. Now, they do swap, which is great, because that's not really the guy you want to deal with. As they bring in Gardevoir, I'm kind of in a weird spot. Look, this is a weird Mienshao. I've been messing a little bit around with kind of how this thing functions and what the Terra wants to be. Working with Terra Dark is supposed to be there for just ghost coverage and or ghost, you know, defensive mons in general, but as we end up dealing now with the damn Gardevoir, I'm in a spot where I don't necessarily, I can only really hit it with a Dark Terra Blast, but also going for the Terra Dark is now going to make me vulnerable potentially to a Moonblast still, if that's what they want to click. If they go for something like a Psyshock, we're in business, because I figure maybe they do go for a Psyshock, wanted to hit me on the physical side, knowing that I have 3 Calm Minds up. So I figured, you know, I've made it this far with the Mienshao. I might as well try to get some value out of it. I go for that Terra Dark and hit him with the Terra Blast. Now the bad thing is, Mienshao isn't really a special attacker, but I got 3 Calm Minds, but they have that light screen up, and that Gardevoir is also pretty bulky on the special side. It is able to live, sadly, and they go for the Moonblast, which does kill me through my Calm Mind, so with a critical hit. I think that crit actually might have mattered, but Mienshao is now Diad Shao, and that shit hurts. So, you know, I waste my Terra, and I didn't really get a whole lot out of it, but it's fine. We're here for the vibes anyway. So at this point, you know, like I said, I have a couple different weird things on the squad. One of them also is Meloetta. I come in, hair looking crazy and green like bacon, and I'm going to now go for a Relic Song. Obviously, you know, Meloetta has a weird niche where it has to go for a Relic Song to be able to change forms. Now, most people use this mon in just its regular form anyway. It's just kind of an easier option that way, but not me. I'm going to go for the Relic Song as they end up swapping into the damn Tropius. I actually end up getting the Serene Grace chance to put it to sleep with the Relic Song, which I always kind of forget about, which is sick because now as I transform, my stats are going all crazy. There will be a dedicated video to the Meloetta eventually, but now we're full physical attacker instead. And also I have the ice coverage. I'm going to go for the triple axle. As I get it down with the second hit, Buddy's hungry. I don't know how the hell you're asleep and eating berries, but somehow he finds his way to a citrus berry. And that now is going to allow it to take this third hit from the triple axle, which is unfortunate as hell. But, I mean, this thing's asleep, so it's not really a threat, which is great. He's just hanging over there, just bananas out, which is crazy. And I'm just going to go for another triple axle. We know it can outspeed, and I'm just having a nice little time. Of course, however, I do miss the triple axle. It feels like this move misses like play rough. They're lying about the accuracy of this shit. It misses. Luckily, it is at least going to be still asleep. And the Reflect wears off, which is great. Now, it also harvests another citrus berry, because that's what this asshole does. Is able to eat it again asleep. Buddy's had a full 2-course meal while asleep. And that's how you keep that type of bulk on. So, at least, I mean, still not a big deal. I can connect on this next triple axle without the Reflect in the way. 2 hit is going to be able to take care of it. And while Meloetta is a bit moving, we're kind of in a spot where, you know, they do have some defensive answers that we can't quite have the momentum again. So they are going to go Sableye, and that's kind of one of the things that stops this. I do not want to be Prankster Will-O-Wisp because it kind of harshes the entire vibe of this thing. So I figure I'm going to save the Meloetta for later. Maybe we can get some value out of it. One of the main problems with Meloetta, at least trying to get it into its crazy form, is that every time you bring it back in, you have to Relic Song again, which is stupid. So as I go Fortress here, I figure Fortress is just kind of an easy swap in against this thing. I know that it's going to be dual screens. We know it's got Will-O-Wisp, but it's probably something like Knockoff on its last slot. So I figured, well, this thing's just setting up everything in the world against me. I can do the same. I can continue to set up some spikes, and with many layers, we can punish some swapping and have a nice little walnut time. We're a wall, we're a nut, and we're here to have a little time. So they probably realize that is the plan, and they end up swapping into Swampert, who isn't an immediate threat to the Fortress here, obviously being physically defensive. I know that I can take multiple Earthquakes, and I'm like, that's actually, I'm not even that scared. For a second, I'm like, should I swap? And I'm like, no, I'm just going to continue to go for layers of spikes, because if I can get however many I can get up, that's just going to open up the win condition door for Shadow Sneak Mimikyu with just like one Swords Dance in the back to bring us home. So I get up another layer of spikes. They do Earthquake, which doesn't do much, but what I always say is, when in doubt, spike it out. I'm going to continue to go for layers of spikes, so they're just going to continue to Quake. And Walnut's doing its exact job here. If they don't have any fire damage, we can have a nice little time. So I got spikes galore all over the damn place, and it doesn't seem like they have any way to remove hazards, which is always the reason why we try to focus on getting as much up as possible. So I now realize I've got my spikes up, I've had a time, and now I should probably try to get some damage on the Swampert. One thing about the Pert is that thing is thick as a bowl of gravy. It's going to be able to take attacks from things like Mimikyu, and if I can get a little bit of chip, we're going to be in a much better spot. But for whatever reason, they go for the flip turn this time. That's going to allow the swap on the Quagsire switch in, and as I'm not water absorbed, they now realize I'm obviously just going to be unaware, and now they go no for sure because they trace the unaware. And look, this is actually its choice band Quagsire, which is something I used in Gen 4 back in the day, and it's actually pretty sick. So they go for the Moonblast, I'm able to live, and then a Choice Banded Earthquake. I mean, didn't even need the band there, but it takes care of the Gardevoir, which is awesome, and that thing's going to be no longer ruining my day. So down goes the Gardevoir. They can now bring in whatever they want. They figure, hey, it seems like a water ground party. My Swampert brother comes in. Sadly, we are against each other, and this thing is also going to be faster. So it can finish me off with an Earthquake. The damage they got from that Moonblast is going to be enough. That takes care of the Swampert, or I am in fact Quagsire, not the Pert. But at least the Swampert did take some pretty good chip from those spikes, having to come back in. And guess what time it is, baby? It's Mimikyu time. Now, we know that, of course, we have the disguise intact. They're going to have to attack me, which is amazing, because now the next time Swampert comes back in, it's going to take considerable damage from all the hazards, and I get myself a nice little cheeky free Swords Dance. So I get that attack doubled, which this thing does, of course, need. But as they go for the flip turn, it's actually kind of a fun interaction because, you know, it breaks the disguise. I get the chip, but also, as they were planning on being able to swap, the red card now is like, hey, you know, you were going to be able to decide what you wanted to swap into, but I'm going to go ahead and decide for you. It ends up bringing in a random mon instead of something they want to bring in. And it actually draws in Blaziken, which is weird here because, you know, Blaziken can outspeed. The Reflect does wear off, which is perfect. And at this point, a Shadow Claw, I don't even need to click Play Rough. I can go for the damage on Shadow Claw because of those hazards, and it should be enough to take care of it, especially with that Swords Dance. So they're actually gonna go for the Detect here. The buddy's opting for Detect rather than Protect, which doesn't matter, but always just feels like a weird decision. But they end up now getting a speed boost, and they probably figured Blaziken might be able to get a little something going, depending on what it might be working with. So they go for the Terra here. They pull out the random Terra. Kind of didn't expect this thing to Terrasilize. They know I'm going for the Shadow Claw, so they opt to go for the Terra Dark, and that's an interesting play. It's going to allow it to live a Shadow Claw, barring a critical hit, but also it's going to boost up a knockoff. Now they have a Stab knockoff, but luckily for us, we actually don't even have an item anymore. Our red card was activated, so without an item, I'm able to live, and the Shadow Claw is sadly not going to be enough to kill it, but we get good enough damage to where I'm like, you know what? A priority Shadow Sneak actually should be able to do it. So I do get off the priority, we sneak him in a shadowy fashion, and that does take care of Blaziken. Probably just enough damage there, which is amazing, because both seeing Blaziken gone is great. That thing can just Swords Dance and speed boost its way into victories, but also they lose their Terra, which is amazing as well. So now as they bring in Sableye, we're kind of in a spot where they have two options. Either they can Will-O-Wisp, or they can go for the Reflect. I figure either I'm going to be able to at least get off a Play Rough and kill it. They opt to go for the Reflect, which is kind of fine by me. I do connect on a Play Rough, luckily, and that's going to be a dead-ass Sableye. I know Sableye hated to see Fairy type come in, but he used to not have any weaknesses, and now he gets his ass played rough by a fake Pikachu. So that's going to be a dead Sableye, and now we're at the end game point where Mimikyu can potentially clean this up for us. As they go into Swampert, I have two options here. First of all, behind a Reflect, Play Rough shouldn't, maybe not be able to kill, but what would is a Shadow Claw crit. I opt to go for that crit chance. It does not happen. I swear to God, Shadow Claw's lying about having a high crit ratio. It does not kill, and also judging on that damage, it means that the Swampert's probably not max HP and defense like I thought it was. So Play Rough might have been able to kill, but I went for the Shadow Claw just on the satisfying crit chance. It doesn't end up happening, and Mimikyu does get taken care of, but not before it was able to go on a nice little tear there. So this at least does open the door for Meloetta, and I'm like, hey, maybe Meloetta can actually come in here and do the damn thing. I can finish it off with a Relic Song, which is satisfying because I'm actually invested fully in physical attack. And special attack is not something I really care about other than just getting that attack off to like switch forms, but whenever you can get a kill with it, it's super nice. So that takes care of the Swampert. Now as their final mon is going to be the Crawdaunt, Meloetta turned out to be the win condition because while this thing does have pretty hard hitting priority with an Aqua Jet, I should be able to live it, which we do nicely. Above half, and then I punch the hell out of him. Meloetta, this thing does not look like it would be a crazy fighting type, but we beat the shit out of him with our little stick arms, and that's going to be a dead Crawdaunt and also the end of the match. So that was, again, another really fun game. Some interesting teams on both sides, and that is going to do it. Thank you guys very much for watching. The support is greatly appreciated, and I'll catch you next time. Peace out.